Hi, I'm Warren, and welcome back to this introduction to Power BI. I hope you're enjoying the course so far. Okay, before we start, just remember to save your desktop file. You go File, Save As, and you can save it into whatever folder you want to save it to. Okay, what we want to do now, we want to start actually building the report that we wanted to build. So if we go back to the file that I showed you, we want to be able to make sense of this data. And if we're looking at we've pulled in the sample data, we've analyzed the data, we have different fields that we want to go in and actually measure, and we want to be able to slice and dice by the different dimensions in our data. So I think the first thing we'll start on is looking at our pure sales data here. So we want to be able to add an option to look at date range. We want to be able to filter by country, product, and segment. And we want to be able to add our information to different visuals here. So the nice thing is that our data is already in a very clean format. We already have numeric fields that are in the format that we can use them in visuals already. And that's where you see this little symbol next to the column. So what we're going to do, we're going to jump straight in and we're going to start building it right now. So if we're going to call this, we're going to call this first page sales analysis, and we're going to want a heading. Now, just to try and keep this training as short as possible, I'm not going to worry too much about the cosmetic side of things. You can spend time, formatting and making your report look really pretty. I'm more just wanting to show you how to get it up and running. So we want a heading. I've typed in sales analysis in our text box. I'm highlighting that, and I want to make it a bit bigger. So let's make it, say, 40. It looks all right. Here we have options to format. I want to make it bold, and I want to center it. So if I now go and I drag this across the entire pane at the top, we can see there we have our sales analysis heading. Okay. What we also want to be able to do is just add a button. So we can go and we can add a back button. We can drag that to the top corner here. We can make it a bit bigger. And this will always take you to the previous page you were on. So we'll do this on every page. We'll just add a little back button there. Sometimes when you click, you can see that this text box overlaps the back button. So sometimes this might be sitting on top of this back button that when you try and click on the back button, it doesn't work. Now, when you're in, just another note, when you're in Power BI Desktop, you can't click. You can see if I click on this once, it highlights the object to be able to do certain things to it. It's not actually taking me anywhere. To click on a button, you can see on the info tip that pops up, we need to hold down Control and click to actually use it as a button. So you would have to hold down Control and click. Now, we don't have another page to go to, so it isn't doing anything. But just bear in mind, anything you need to click to get an action out of in desktop, you need to hold down Control. When we publish this to the web, you won't have to hold down Control. You'll just click on it and it'll work. That's because we're not going to be editing the properties in the web. We're going to edit them in desktop. So the first thing is, when you click on it, any object, it brings up the properties here where you can edit. So that stands true for the buttons too. So if you click on it, it brings up the properties. To click and get the result of the click, you need to hold down Control and click. So if we can either move this across to the side of the button, now we know that it's not overlapping and this button will always be able to be clicked, or we can leave this across the button, drag it across the button, come on, just grab it there and drag that across. And when we click on the button, we can go to Format, and here it says Bring Forward. This is the kind of the hierarchy of where the item is sitting, what is sitting on top or underneath what other item. And we would always want this right on the top. So we want it right in the front. because this button shouldn't have anything on top of it. So we click there and we go bring to front. Now this button would always sit on top of this text box, and the text box would never ever block this from being clicked on. Doesn't always happen, but it's just a nice to know, because it can drive you a bit crazy when you're clicking and nothing is happening. So we have a back button. So if we're looking at our data, we have our date column here. So we would want to be able to choose a date range, and if we want to filter this data by the date range, the best way to do that would be to select the date column, right? So we're going to go here, and we're going to go to our different visuals. So how we add anything to the canvas, we use a visual. And here you can see there's a little visual there that has a little filter icon on, and that says slicer. So if we click on that, it brings up a visual here. Now there's nothing in this visual at the moment, but it's saying here, these options update for any visual you choose. We need to add a field. So let's go and see what field we need to add here. We want to add the date field, right? So we can just go and drop the date field in there, or you can just tick the little checkbox there. And now we can go and make it a bit smaller. Sorry, I don't want to close that there. We want to keep that wide. We want to take the slicer and make it a bit smaller. Now you see, if we make it too small, this won't be really usable. So I kind of try and keep it a fairly decent size like that maybe, and we can put that up in the top corner. So now we have the ability to choose a date range. Again, if we want to always make sure that it is going to be clickable, we can go Format, Bring to Front. So now it's sitting on top of this text box. So we'll be able to access these things without having the text box on top. Okay, then what we wanted to be able to do was to filter by country, product, and segment. So again, we know how to get a slicer. We go. Another tip is always just click on a blank white space to deselect what you're on, because if I'm on this and I choose a different visual here, it will change this from a slicer to whatever visual. Now it's trying to make this thing a chart, which it can't understand because it's just a date field, right? We would need to add a legend and more information here. So just always remember, I've made it back to a slicer. Always remember to click on the white space before adding a visual. So we now want to create another slicer, and in this slicer we want country. So all we do, we can either drag this onto the actual visual, we can drag it onto here into the field well, or we can just click on country. Because this is selected, it knows to put it in here. Now you can see this is just brought up like a little box with check boxes in. And this might be a requirement. Maybe your end user wants the ability to see all of these items and be able to, select whichever country they want, or multiple countries, by holding down Control, and you can clear. Maybe this is what the end user wants. If you had 1,000 countries in here, this list would be very long. So often, a better way to do things is to make this either a drop down or maybe format it slightly differently. So again, when we click on an object, it brings up the fields here and all the properties related to this object. This is to do with what fields we want to show. So we want to show country, but we actually want to format this now. So now we go and you see this next option here is to format your visual. And whatever visual you click on, this formatting options change. When we're on a text box for a title, we have certain options. When we're on a button, we have certain options. When we're on a slicer, we have certain options. So this updates according to whatever you click on. And here you can see we have slicer settings. Do we want a vertical list, or do we want a drop down? We want it to be a drop down. So all we do is we go and choose drop down there. Now we can format it. It's nice and neat and it doesn't take up too much space. So there we have country. Now we wanted one for product. So we can either click on this, we can go copy, we can click off it, paste. And now they're exactly the same size. The formatting, everything is the same. And all we can do now is change country with product. So we can go and we can grab product, we can drop product above country. Now if we look and see, it's got product, and if you expand, it's got the country. So you could literally go and filter your data by Amarillo and then choose a particular country. But we don't want that. We want it just to be products. All we do is we go in here and we delete the country column. And there you can see we have only the product now. We also wanted segment. Again, we can just click paste because we had that in memory already. And we can go, and you can see as I bring it next to product, that little red line is showing that they're touching. It was showing the red line down there. So that's fine. We want to be able to add segment now, so I can drag segment and I can delete country. So now we have a segment drop down, product drop down, and a country drop down. We have our date range selector, and we can go back to a previous page if we need to. But now what we want to do, we want to show that nice map visual that we had before. So if we go, the little images they use, or the icons they use for the visuals are quite descriptive. We can go down and we can see a little map there. So again, we click on the white space because we don't want to change one of these into a map. Click there, and there we have a map. So again, we go, this red line going across here is showing that we're touching the bottom of these little slices. So we move it till we're nicely aligned, and then we can expand it across the whole way. And here we'll do our map. So again, now because we're on the map visual, it's going to go and it's going to give us all the options that are relative to maps. We have location, legend, latitude, longitude, bubble size, and tooltips. So we know that we have a country field. So that's a geographical column. So we can go and we can grab. We don't have latitude and longitude. If you had that, you could put the actual latitude and longitude in here. So if you have an address with latitude and longitude, you can use that. But we're going to use country. So we drag and drop country into location. There it's picked up by countries. And you'll see it does repeat the world over and over and over. You can see there's North America. There's North America. That's just how the visual works. But what we want to do now is we want to go and add something that we want to view. We want to view the sales, right? So down here, you have the option for bubble size. Add a data field here. So we're going to go and grab sales, and we drop that in bubble size. And there you can see the different size, the different sizes for the sales in the different countries. And there we have a heading, sum of sales by country. We might not want to have sum of in front. It's just saying that we've taken sum and we've dropped it in here. And if we click on the drop down there, it is using sum. If we wanted average, we could click on average, and that would be average sales. So we go back here, we don't want average. We could have minimum, maximum, count, etc. Or we could even show it as a percentage. What we want is sum. Now we know here's where we add the data fields. Here's where we format. So on here, we have visual, specific, the map settings. Do you want road, aerial? You can change the type of map you want to show, dark, depending what you want. I'll just leave it as road. There are different controls, auto zoom, zooming buttons where you can zoom in and out. Your bubbles, what is the size you want to show, what is the color you want to show. You might not want to show blue, you might want to show darker blue. There you can do all of your formatting, right? Category labels, do you want to show them? If you do, you can put them on like that, or you can take them off. So here's where you can do all of your formatting, right? Under general, they have the more generic items that are common to all visuals. So all visuals have a title. So if we expand that, there it's defaulted a title. We can put any title in there, any text in there. So I'm just going to take away the sum of, and click off it, and now you can see it says sales by country. So that just makes it a little bit easier to read. You can change text colors, formats, format size. You can align it in the center if you want. You can make it bold. So just like in Excel or any other Microsoft tool, you have all of the formatting options here. I'll let you guys play with that. I won't get into too much detail, just for the sake of time. So we have our map. Now what we want to do is we want to look at our sales, cost of goods sold, and profit by year. And in that, we're going to want to look at using, say, a stack column chart. Again, we clicked off our map, else it would have changed our map into a stacked column chart. And this can be a little bit tricky. It keeps dragging this filter thing. Let me minimize the filter here. And I'm just going to put that on the side here, make it a bit smaller. And what we want to look at in this is the 3 measures. So we want our 3 measures, and we wanted to do it by year. So let's go to x-axis. We want year. We want our month number. Remember, we can drill into visuals if we have a hierarchy. So we'll just put our month number in there. And we can even put our date in there. So we can drill through our visual from year into the month, into the actual day of the month. And then here we'll just check that's all fine. And then on our y-axis, what do we want to look at to measure? We want sales. And again, it's the sum of sales that we want. We want cost of goods sold. And you can see it's building a stack chart. So it's showing you of the total sales, the cost to do that sale was that. And that was the actual sum of the sales. So we can do that, and we can add profit. So let's go and drop profit on there. And again, that's our profit right at the top there, that little orange line. And we can highlight, drill in, and we can click on 2014. It takes us into the months. Again, you can see it's a stack column chart. And if we want to go into the 12th month, we can click on that. And there we only have 1 day that we did all those sales. And we can drill up again, back to there. So that can be that visual there. We might want to look at the exact same thing, but by product, for instance. So again, we can click on this visual, we can copy, we can paste, it creates a duplicate. I'll just put that straight underneath. And here, instead of year, month, and day, we want to put in product. So we put product there, we can clear those ones, and now we have our products. Again, we can play with the formatting to make it look good. We can minimize the text, we can make the text a different size, etc. This is purely just to show you how the different visuals work. I personally don't like stacked visuals too much, so normally when I want to show it, I'll just do it as a normal bar chart, like a cluster chart like that. And there you can very clearly see what the value of each is. That makes it a bit more clear. That's totally up to your preference. I prefer this kind of visual. Also, a recommendation, from all the experts in data analysis and visualizations, they recommend only putting your actual dimension on the axis here if it is a date or time, like here. If you are not doing it that way, you should actually switch these two round. In other words, you should put product on the y-axis and the actual facts on the x-axis. So let's go here. Don't want to count. We can do, let me just quickly change this, and we make it into let me just take this thing out here. Apologies. Let's make another quick copy of this thing. So if you're not dealing with time on the x-axis, you can actually do your charting like this. So I'll show you now what I mean. We're going to put product here on the y. There we go. Take that out. So if ever you're using a dimension other than time, you put it on the y-axis and you put your measures on the x-axis. And if you're doing time, you do the time on the y-axis here. So here you can see already that's a lot neater. We can see the full name of the product, where before it was a little bit squashed at the bottom. And you can also see, top to bottom. Just for pure time, I'm just going to move this in here. Let's move all of these things a bit up. I'm going to make this heading a bit smaller. Let's move this map up a bit. Let's move this up a bit just to give us a bit more space here. I'll make that a bit higher. You don't really want to have scrolling on your report. You want people to be able to view the full data set. So you would realign all these things, make them a bit smaller. We could probably do something like this and have country, product, and segment, underneath here, for instance. You can move them around however you see fit, just to give yourself a bit more room. But you wouldn't want a scroll bar on your visual. But for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. I won't invest too much time in the formatting. All right, let's look at a pie chart. We've got two different options. We've got a pie chart. Let's make this thing a bit smaller. Again, all of the options here are specific to a pie chart now. So when we're using a pie chart, you shouldn't use too much, or shouldn't choose this visual if you have too much information that you want to show. It can get quite confusing for the end viewer. But if you want to show a comparison, it works fine. So we want to show a comparison between the countries and what portion of the total sales is each country. Again, my personal opinion is it always works better like that. There we can see who's doing what a lot clearer than if we're doing a pie chart. But for the sake of this course, I'm just showing you what a pie chart does. You also have the option, let me copy this one, copy and paste another one, of having this variation, which is called a donut chart. To me, it just looks a little bit neater. So maybe what we can do, we can make them a bit bigger here. And maybe we can make this one a bit taller just to make it look a little bit neater. And bring that one down to just to something like that. And this last one here, we wanted to show. You always want to try and keep them the same size just to make it visually fun and aligned. This last one we wanted to do segments. All I do, again, instead of recreating it from scratch, you can just copy and you can delete whatever dimension you don't want and then show here. Again, this can look quite difficult to read. I personally would always just go with something like that. It just makes it a lot clearer to understand. But those are your different options. So again, you don't have to go and create a new chart. If you want to change the format of a chart or you want to play around and see what looks best, you could just click on the different charts. You can even go down to a table and it will show you the table of view. So that might even be a better way of showing it than a pie chart, but that's totally up to you. You can click between those and have a look. So that is our first page, the sales page. I won't keep this video going much longer. We can look at the profit analysis in the next page, in the next video. That'll go a lot quicker because it's pretty much exactly the same as what we're looking at here, only using profit as the fact that we are measuring. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.